There we go. Yep, I can see that.
All right. So, hello everyone. Welcome to a part two of the episode. Uh, if you're wondering why, technical issues out of our hands, but
Got
we've
it
now
all figured
reached
out.
the final part of the interview with our guest Patrick here today. So, Patrick, the last two questions I want to ask you are: have you ever thought about how different your life would be if you didn't have the podcast? And what is your word of wisdom to fellow content creators who want to tell history stories?
All right. So if I didn't have the podcast, I would probably be that person who pulls people over in the street to tell them about a certain period person, something like that. I'll be the guy in the pub who's like, you know what, you need to listen to or hear about this period. So having the podcast has given me a really good outlet to work that. There's a very good chance that my wife would be wanting to have her own special separate room because I was talking separate, incessantly about that. Um, but yeah, in terms of having that, I've always been a very creative person. I used to write really horrible poetry when I was a teenager, and then I was a frontman in a prog rock band in my 20s. So I've always had a creative outlet. So um, the podcast has been a really good way to pair my loving of history with also a creative element where I can do my voice and sound effects for the show. Um, that are often little jingles and that, as well as do my reels and TikToks and stuff like that, which allow me to get a little bit more theatrical with some things. So having not being able to do that, I'd probably be a bit more of a random person on the street who you'd probably cross over the other side of the road to avoid getting stuck in a
Right.
45-minute chat about why everyone shouldn't be super hot on Alexander the Great and why his dad was a pretty rad dude as well.
Mm.
Hmm. Um, but sorry, and we're parting words of wisdom, isn't it? That's
Yes.
where
Parting words of
yes.
wisdom.
I would say to anybody who's interested and wants to start a podcast, write a book, uh, write a play, make a short film, anything like that. But if we're talking podcasts, just start and do it, and it'll work itself out as you go along. Because when it comes to a creative element like that, it's a rather organic and it grows. I remember there was probably about a month and a half when we started doing it. And I thought, oh, I don't know about this. Maybe I should tweak this or do that. And like, just get it out there and do it. That's why the first few episodes are actually quite rough with their audio and all that because we just wanted to get it out there and start rolling with it. And as if you listen from the beginning, and long time listeners will know, they can see how the show evolves with its not only its quality but its themes as well and presentation and we're a lot more comfortable with doing it. So it's kind of nice to see where a show comes from, like what we spoke about in would be part one of this recording, about sort of a first book, and you can steer people back to that and say, hey, this is my growth, this is where I came from.
Right.
So back to the question though, there's a few people, friends that I know that are interested and want to start a podcast. I'm like, oh, I've got to wait until this, and I've maybe got to think about this, and I'm not sure. I'm like, just do it. Just get out there and do it. I remember the interview that you did with TK Nakamura. I think I've got her name right. Hopefully, I know her as For the Love of History. She says basically
Yes.
the same thing. Just do it. Get started. And get yourself out there and get what you want to say out there. Because if you're passionate about it and if you're diligent and you've got the drive, I guess, it'll come good. It'll come good to the way you want it. But the hardest thing to do with anything like that is starting. So I would say if you want to do it, just go out there and do it, and it'll evolve into the thing that is you. Like your true voice will come out.
Perfect words of wisdom for this interview. And with that, listeners, this concludes our interview with Patrick Lill. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today and for enduring the hectic technical bugs and issues. You've been a wonderful guest on the show. And where can people find and engage with you on social media? You want to know more about you, be up to date with the latest episodes, and where can people find your podcast on the podcasting apps?
Right. So, first of all, Gabrielle, thank you very much for having me on. It's as I said from the beginning, it's incredibly humbling to be asked on the show and to chat history with you and to be around the others who have been on before and all that. So, incredibly humbling. Thanks for having me on. And don't worry about the technical difficulties. I'm pretty sure that's on the Australian side. I think our internet still ranks below Romania. So we
Mm.
might fix that at some stage. We'll see. Our government doesn't seem to be interested in that. So sorry everybody, but we got a two-parter out of it. So
Yeah, that's true. We did.
good. But anybody who's interested in reaching the show, we're on Instagram, TikTok, as well as Facebook, all under a little history podcast. And then there's a LinkedIn account linked to that as well, which will get you to all the things. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Acast, Rcast, anything with a cast on it, really. We'll be on that. Look for the red bronze pottery imagery that was done by the amazing guys at That's Not Canon, a Brisbane-based podcast collective. They were awesome at producing that one. Yeah, so check it out there. And yeah, hope to see you on the show. And again, thanks for having me on.
No problem, Patrick. And I will link all those down below in the description of this video, as well as part one of this interview to see the full discussion with Patrick. And again, listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. And also a big thank you to our guest, Patrick, for joining us today. Patrick, thank you so very much. And until next time, have a wonderful evening or wonderful day, I should say. It's evening my time.